We are joined now by a guy that I will be watching some this weekend as WrestleMania is inching closer and closer. He is Michael Mizanin, I believe is how you pronounce your last name. I don't even know exactly because I know you as The Miz. And so, first of all, thanks for getting up early with us. Second, how good of a show, how big of a show do you think it's going to be with WrestleMania back in front of fans, which should be pretty outstanding?
One, you were very close. It is Mizanin. And two, I cannot wait for WrestleMania. Live audience. We have not felt the energy, the electricity of a live crowd in over a year. Granted, we've had virtual audience. The WWE has done a tremendous job with the Thunderdome, and everybody has given it rave reviews on our virtual fans. But to have real life feeling, real life audience there is going to be second to none. I mean, that's what we feed off of as superstars.
You know what? I've been a fan of yours for a long time, since all the way back at the Real World and Road Rules Challenge, which I still am addicted to. I think it's such a fun show. But I remember when you started, sort of transitioning into being a professional wrestler and being known as The Miz on the show. Did you really ever, when did you start thinking, hey, I can have a career as a wrestler? Like at what age, and did you really expect when you started to make that transition that it would ever go as well as it has?
I'm still in awe of the fact that I'm not only a WWE superstar, but the only two-time Grand Slam champion in the history of WWE, meaning I have held the prestigious, most coveted title, WWE Championship multiple times, the Intercontinental title multiple times, the United States Champion multiple times, as well as the Tag Team Championship multiple times. And if you want to throw something else in there, I've held the Money in the Bank contract multiple times. It's crazy to me. Never would I have expected, being a kid growing up in Parma, Ohio, that I would amount to anything, let alone all the accolades and awards that I've been able to achieve. But, it just goes to show hard work, dedication. Whenever someone tells you can't do something, believing in yourself and saying that you actually can, not listening to all the Twitter feeds out there telling you how terrible you are, how negative it is out there. But I've always tried to generate a positive attitude, and that's what I think has gotten me so far in my life.
It's interesting. I always talk on the show about taking advantage of opportunities when they arise, particularly now, because we got a lot of younger people who listen to the show. And it used to be, and you would get a job and you might work there for 30 or 40 years. The reality is now, for a lot of people out there who are teenagers or in their 20s, you may only work 3 or 4 years at a variety of different jobs over the years. So you have been a guy who obviously was willing to grab opportunity in maybe non-traditional fashions. How did your career start? So you are a college kid, I think, and you decide to audition for the Real World. Was it a total lark? Did you have any kind of idea that, hey, if I get a little bit of a profile, it could lead to a wrestling career? What was kind of your anticipation? Or were you just like a lot of people out there, like, oh, this seems cool to try out, and then it led to that?
WWE didn't even cross my mind. Like, I never thought I could ever be a WWE superstar. I mean, these guys were 6'7", full of pure solid muscle. How am I going to be able to do that? So when I was at Miami University of Ohio, I was in my fraternity, and I remember watching TV, and Real World was wildly popular.
Yeah.
I remember watching the Real World New Orleans, season 9, and they had a commercial that says, "Do you want to be on the Real World?" And I answered yes. Well, try out. And I said, okay. So I tried out, went through a ton of, I guess you can call them auditions. First was like a kind of video that I made myself to show who I am. Then it was like a 50-page application. Then I had like this weird, so back then we didn't have camera phones. We had these VHS camcorders. So I set a VHS camcorder in front of me and a speakerphone, and the person would interview me, and I would have to speak to the camera, kind of like they do in the Real World. And so I answered the questions, and after like 6 or 7 interviews, I got cast on the Real World. I never thought I could ever do it. Never in my wildest dreams. No way. It was one of the most popular shows out there. 60,000 people try out. All my friends are telling me there's no way I'm going to make it. And somehow I did. After I made it onto that show, created the character called The Miz, it would have been one of those things like, it would have went viral if viral was a thing back then. Like, there was no MySpace, no Twitter, and no Instagram, no social media. So, you watched TV. And Real World was the most popular show on cable. And I created that character, and after that, I said, you know what? even though I'm not 6'7", full of pure solid muscle, I'm still going to determine to become a WWE superstar.
We're talking to The Miz. What's it like to go from a regular guy who's in a fraternity at college to suddenly going on a television show that, as you mentioned, is so wildly popular in a pre-social media age that when you leave that show, I would imagine almost everybody between like the ages of at the time, 14 to like 30 years old, basically in the entire United States recognizes you in some way. And this is not a situation where like you worked your way up, you know, like you were a bit part of an actor in like a small movie. Like it's almost an overnight thing, isn't it? What was it like for you to have that level of fame that quickly for basically being yourself on some level?
It was crazy. I mean, we got invited to do New Year's at MTV and help host the show. I was like, oh my God. Like it was surreal, like everywhere we went. And I remember there was only like 2 episodes of that season with The Miz in it. But once The Miz came about, I was no longer Mike, ever.
Yeah.
It was always, anytime I walked down the street, The Miz, The Miz, The Miz. And it was crazy. I didn't even know how to deal with it because no one tells you how to deal with instant fame, like where everyone knows you. And granted, I'm an only child. I love attention. Yeah. But there's moments where you're like, can I have a moment with my, like, sometimes you be on a date because I think autograph looks cool and everything, but once a line starts, it's kind of like, okay, sorry, my bad, you know, but you don't want to be rude to the people that are fans.
You know, it's funny. I met CT once, who was on all those Real World Road Rules challenges, and I was like, hey, who comes up to you the most? And he was like, bro, women 18 to 34, which is the funniest answer ever. But I thought it was interesting. How does the fame of reality television compare to the fame of wrestling and the fans who react to you? Because you've had a little bit of a different perspective on that fame coming from MTV and now being a WWE superstar. Are the fan base reactions different based now than they might have been back when you were a younger guy?
Oh, when I was in my I first got to WWE, I could tell if a person was a WWE fan or a person was a Real World fan. A WWE fan is always wearing WWE merch. Like they're wearing the merch of their favorite superstar. They are dedicated. They love everything and anything WWE. You know, so you kind of had a feeling and a grasp of where. So now I don't get recognized for Real World anymore because it was 20 years ago.
Right.
Sometimes here and there, but a lot of people are like, oh, WWE, oh, Ms. and Mrs., I love your reality show on USA. So it's, you know, I've been on so many things now that, you know, I think I'm just kind of widely recognizable, and sometimes you don't even know from what you've just seen something that I was on.
How does it feel to have not only fame for yourself, but for your family, and be on television in a way where people feel like they know you? There's obviously been positives and negatives associated with reality television as it pertains to family-style relationships. What's it like for you?
I always looked at it like when I said I was going to do Ms. and Mrs., I wanted to give people a real feel of what it is like to live in our shoes, my wife's and myself's shoes. You know, we're WWE superstars. We're on the road all the time. We want to give you an inside look, but we didn't want it to be another reality show where it's all about drama and sadness. We wanted to cheer people up. We wanted to make people laugh because honestly, in our real day-to-day life, that's what we do. We laugh a lot. So this show is a family-friendly show that literally, if you could sit down and unwind, especially with all the drama that's going on in the world, and just sit down with your family and laugh at all the stupidity that happens in my family. And it's cool to see, you know, my dad and my mom and, you know, Marjo, my mother-in-law, get a little fame. It's fun to see, you know, my dad get recognized. You know, whether it's because he was in the ring at one of the WrestleManias or it's because of Ms. and Mrs., my dad thinks he's the biggest star in the world, and it's kind of fun, you know?
How does it feel to walk out into the ring to get ready to fight at an event like WrestleMania? What can you compare it to for an average person that is out there listening right now for you as you enter onto that pathway to walk down to the ring?
I wish I could compare it to something, but there's nothing quite like it. If you sit there in the audience and you feel the electricity, you get a taste of what it's like to be a WWE superstar because you're part of the show. And, there is nothing quite like WrestleMania. Like, as much as people are like, oh, Super Bowl, World Series, it's not like it at all. Like, our fans are interactive. Our fans are part of the show. I mean, they boo who they hate. They cheer who they love. And hopefully, this Saturday, when I take on Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, myself and John Morrison, hopefully they'll be cheering me. But who knows? Because Bad Bunny is arguably one of the biggest recording artists out there right now. The guy's won a Grammy this year. I saw him at the Super Bowl with J-Lo and Shakira. He has a huge popularity. But the problem is his fans that he's bringing into WWE are going to get a rude awakening when I sock him in the mouth and he's not going to be able to sing for a year.
I think there's two kinds of athletes. The kind of athlete that wants to bathe in the adulation of a home crowd when they make a shot or score a touchdown to win, and the kind of athlete that loves complete silence when they shock or stun or upset an arena or a stadium. Which in your ideal world is better? The jaw agape silence or the raucous celebration of talent? Which would you prefer?
I enjoy the celebration, but I want everyone to celebrate with me. When I beat Bad Bunny, this Saturday at WrestleMania, I want that entire crowd just to be jumping up and down, high-fiving, taking pictures of themselves, celebrating. And I hope that they take a moment that lasts a lifetime, because that's, as WWE superstar, our job. Our job, at WrestleMania is to create moments that, families can take away with them and remember for the rest of their lives where they were when that moment happened.
Has an athlete that you maybe grew up a fan of, or even a wrestler that you grew up a fan of, come to you and been like, dude, I love what you do, I'm a big fan, and has that happened to you where you're like, man, I can't believe insert name here is a fan of mine? That's crazy. I'm sure it's happened to you at some point.
Had it happen last week. I'm walking down the hall, and the immortal Hulk Hogan is there for the NWO induction at the WWE Hall of Fame, which everyone can see on Peacock. And he comes up to me and goes, man, I am a fan of everything you're doing. And I go, wow, thank you. So I'm in awe. Hulk Hogan, the reason why I took my vitamins when I was a kid is because he told me to.
Yeah.
Say my prayers. I say my prayers because Hulk Hogan told me to. And then here's this guy saying, I'm a huge fan of everything you're doing, whether it's in the ring or Ms. and Mrs. You are just, you do it with a smile. You're a hard worker. And I was just in awe. And it touches my heart every time I think about it, because it's like, it's the immortal Hulk Hogan,
I've got kids. I know you do too. Talking to them, last question for you, social media. You mentioned kind of earlier in the interview that you can get sucked into a lot of negativity. If you read mentions, if you read comments, we got a lot of kids who listen going to school. They're in the car with their parents, starting off the day. What would you tell them as a guy who is obviously in the public eye and is an entertainer about the value or non-value of allowing people to influence the way you feel on social media?
It's always different on the person. And I guess you have to gauge on who you're talking to. And if it's kids, the reason why I love being a bad guy in WWE is because I encourage people to say negative things to me. If you want to, because I feel if they're saying negative things to me and how they can't stand me, that's my character on TV. Yeah. I'd rather them say negative things to me than to say negative things to their friend, to the person that they don't like in their school. Like, I'd rather take these kids that are negative attention away from school and take it away from those kids that might not be able to take the criticism or the harsh words, because I use harsh words and negativity, and I look at it and I go, okay, I'm going to let that fuel my fire, and I'm going to prove them wrong. Because maybe if I prove them wrong, the reason why usually people are negative is because they can't see themselves doing it. So how could anyone else do it? And if I do what they say I can't do, then maybe they'll believe, hey, if he did it, maybe I can do it. And maybe, just maybe, that'll bring a little bit more positivity in the world.
Good stuff, my man. The Miz against Bad Bunny Saturday night, WrestleMania in Tampa. I'll be there on Sunday. I can't wait to watch. Appreciate the time, my man.
Definitely watch it. It's on Peacock, baby. Peacock in the United States. So you're definitely going to want to watch it. And Miz and Mrs. the next day, April 12th, Monday, right after Monday Night Raw, 11 p.m. You're not going to want to miss all new episodes of Miz and Mrs. If you want something to laugh out loud with your entire family, definitely check it out.
Appreciate it, my man. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank
Enjoy
you
the
so
weekend.
much. I really appreciate the interview.